I think most of us in the workforce have a bone to pick with Gen Z.
It is genuinely disgusting to watch my generation be so entitled.
Let's talk about the real epidemic out here. It's not a virus, it's not inflation, it's entitlement.
Decided to part ways with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop you right there.
I'm really sorry that you're having this experience and feeling this way.
Gen Z have no reason to believe that they're ever going to have economic security.
Another week, another Gen Z is lazy and entitled article.
As an employer of individuals that are in Gen Z, I have visibly seen how Gen Z is.
Gen Z has no work ethic. If you've crawled your way through the war-torn trenches of TikTok, or you've done the equally challenging task of talking to someone in real life, you've probably heard somebody say this. Really, it's gotten to the point where I feel like talking about how Gen Z has no work ethic or how Gen Z is lazy is just another normal talking piece, like as if you're talking about the weather. So if there's ever an awkward moment in a conversation, you just pull out the old, boy oh boy, Gen Z sure is lazy. And if you say that to anybody over the age of 50, they're legally obligated to be your best friend. In a way, it kind of just seems like a normal and accepted part of society that Gen Z has no work ethic. But what if Gen Z actually does work hard? Today, we're gonna dive into Gen Z's work ethic, and at the end, we're gonna see if one of the most common beliefs we have, that belief being that Gen Z are just a bunch of lazy, good-for-nothing Zoomers, we're gonna see if that's just one big lie or if it's more complicated than that. Let's start at the beginning. Where did these accusations come from? If you're like me, or if you're roughly the same age as me, you've been hearing people call you lazy since you were in diapers. Which honestly, that's kind of fair because it's a little embarrassing that we didn't just pick up our baby briefcase and march our way right onto the factory to assemble some automobiles. I actually remember one time when I was younger, I was the designated babysitter for my baby sister each night after dinner. I would scarf down whatever was put on my plate and then I would go play tea party, and this went on every single night for many, many nights. But then one fateful night, the big boss called me into the office. I was chastised for not working hard enough. And from that moment forward, you better believe I played Tea Party harder than anybody has ever played Tea Party in their life. That's why I'm so good at holding out my pinky. Are you impressed? Anyways, I feel like this moment specifically embodies one of the biggest reasons that people say Gen Z has no work ethic, and that's because they say we're lazy. I can't think of a better way to illustrate this than showing you a video of a guy who has an absolute roast session about Gen Z.
As an employer of individuals that are in Gen Z, I have visibly seen how Gen Z is. The work ethic is not there, the common sense is completely out the window, and the emotional regulation of these individuals is non-existent. Their emotions dictate every action. They do not want to show up for themselves or their future because they don't think they need to. And their ability to socialize is minuscule at best. They can barely communicate unless it's through a phone. One thing that kids in Gen Z need to absorb is self-responsibility trumps all. We understand that you need to feel in tune with your emotions, and your emotions do matter. However, responsibility comes first over everything else, regardless of how you feel and regardless of what is going on in your life.
Obviously, this guy hasn't read the classic book, Easily Managing Gen Z, Effective Communication Strategies to Unlock the Creative Potential and Balance Digital Distractions Within the Zoomer Workforce, because in this book, it talks about bridging the communication abyss. And let me tell you, with the way this guy just came out and absolutely tore into Gen Z, it doesn't feel like there was any bridge. Just abyss. And in this endless abyss are the reasons that Gen Z sucks. And to sum up what he said, here are the points he made. Gen Z doesn't have common sense, has no emotional regulation, can't socialize, and needs to learn responsibility, which that leaves us with two different options. The first one being that either Gen Z sucks at absolutely everything, or this guy needs to get better at hiring people. Because right now it seems like his process for hiring people is going under the local bridge and asking the people there if they want jobs. However, I will say though, I don't think he's totally wrong in this. Like, I think there's definitely some truth. I'm not entirely sure what he means by common sense, because sometimes that's used as an umbrella term for a whole wide variety of random things, so I won't talk about that too much. But let me tell you, when it comes to not being able to socialize, I've been nominated for multiple PhDs in that category. You know how they say it takes 10 hours to master something? Well, if that's the case, then I am the Michael Jordan of awkward conversation, except that he's won 6 NBA titles and I usually just win embarrassing rides home. Which leads me to another reason that people say Gen Z has no work ethic: entitlement.
Let's talk about the real epidemic out here. It's not a virus, it's not inflation, it's entitlement. This generation wants a trophy just for showing up. They want money without work, recognition without results. They want their debt wiped clean, their job handed to them, and a six-figure lifestyle without a six-figure work ethic. But life doesn't care about your feelings. Success doesn't show up just because you posted about your grind once. It shows up when you put in real work, consistently. The truth is, no one owes you anything. You want more? Be more. Drop a 100 emoji in the comments if you agree.
Boom, boom, boom. Chat, drop those 100 emojis. But also, the crazy thing is that I don't even fully disagree with him. In my opinion, principally, he's right on a lot of what he's saying. However, when I hear people say things like this, I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect. Specifically, when I hear people say, you can't have a six-figure lifestyle without a six-figure mindset. Yeah. Except the thing is, I think people are getting confused between not wanting to pay 1,000% more for houses, food, groceries, and things like that, for entitlement. Which, don't get me wrong, there's definitely a level of entitlement, like they're 100%. Like, if you go on social media, you can pretty easily see it. But I just don't think that the entirety of Gen Z's personality can be boiled down to they just don't want to work. Which, if we went down that rabbit hole, we'd start talking about like economics and stuff like that. But the only type of inflation that I want to talk about is the inflation for my pool party this Saturday. You coming? No, okay. We're having Jones barbecue and foot massage. Be there, be square.
Jones barbecue and foot massage.
Those really are the two main reasons that I hear when people talk about why Gen Z has no work ethic. But I feel like when we have those conversations, we're forgetting a big component of it, which seems like it's a really obvious one, but I feel like it's ignored a lot of the time. Let's talk about the world Gen Z grew up in. I think a big reason that may explain why Gen Z acts the way they do is because of our expectations of the world versus reality. What I mean by that is when we were growing up, especially with a lot of advancements in technology, we figured that the world was ours for the taking. I mean, think about it. Our grandparents threw rocks for fun, or something like that, I don't know what they did. And we played with virtual penguins and decorated igloos. But even despite this mind-blowing level of technological advancement, the economy still shifted in quite a drastic way. Which, in order to talk about this, I am gonna have to talk about inflation, and not just for my pool, so that is kind of unfortunate. I'm gonna go through this quickly because in my opinion, this isn't the most exciting thing to talk about, but here's an example of what I'm talking about. In 1980, the median US house price was around $68,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's around $283,886. In 2025, the median US house price is around $410,000. In 1980, the median household income was about $17,710. which adjusted for inflation is about $73,935. In 2025, the median household income is about $85,000. So if we adjust for inflation, since 1980, the median household income has increased about 15%, while the cost of a house has roughly increased about 44%. And really, we can go through many different areas where you can see this massive increase in the cost of many different things. But honestly, I don't really feel like it. My point is that the cost of living is outpacing income, which I'm not gonna blame any specific reason because there's a whole bunch of different reasons. There's not one single answer. I'll just let you guys duke that out in the comments. I'm scared. My main point for talking about inflation, which by the way, ew, is to mainly point out how younger generations seem to already start at kind of a disadvantage in terms of purchasing power. So the craziest part is for the younger generations to reach the same milestones that older generations did, we have a higher baseline level of work we have to do. However, what I find kind of ironic is that even though the baseline level of work is different, there definitely seems like there's a difference in attitude as well. And I'll be totally honest, with older generations, there's more of a sense of urgency and resilience. With Zoomers and younger generations, I do feel like there's generally a higher level of entitlement and laziness. And I know people are gonna get mad when I say that. But look, if you're a fellow Zoomer like me, I know we're aging rapidly, I don't look like a Zoomer, but if you're a Zoomer like me, I feel like you have to agree with that, at least to a certain extent. I'm not saying that there isn't any possible justification for that, I'm just pointing out that there seems to be an obvious difference between different generations. Which, yeah. And to see an example of this, you don't have to go much further than comic book Instagram. If you go to almost any comment section on a comic book post, I guarantee you will see people fighting like their life depends on it. If you thought being in a zombie apocalypse was bad, obviously you haven't said that Spider-Man could beat Batman in a fight because you would be eaten alive. You wouldn't make it out. And I might be a little controversial here when I say that while I don't think you should be entitled, I think you could make an argument that this laziness that Gen Z has is in direct response to the state of our economy. And maybe to be even a little more controversial, you could say that older generations play a role in that. I mean, we've had all the expectations laid out before us by our parents and grandparents, but the thing is that these expectations haven't changed with reality. So Gen Z is responding to this lack of change by feeling like they're being unfairly treated. But let me be clear on that. I'm not fully defending Gen Z because I know we have our flaws, but I'm also not fully defending older generations because I feel like we need to realize that there's been a change in the reality of our situation. Once we do that, I feel like we could maybe figure out a solution and logically fix what's broken. So all of that to say is that the world Gen Z inherited is much different than the generations from before us, obviously. And because of that, I think our expectations have to change a little bit. I'm not saying that we should collectively lower our expectations, I just feel like we need to shift them to match what's going on. And I'll probably get roasted for saying that, but that's okay. At the end of the day, I think it's really easy to say that Gen Z has no work ethic. And sure, it's super fun to say. I mean, we all have a good time saying it, and maybe there's some truth to it. But all I know is that there's two competing sides to this. One side thinks Gen Z is lazy and there's nothing more to it, and another side is blaming everyone else but themselves. I think in order to solve this issue, we're not only gonna have to see the reality of the situation we're living in, but we also have to be completely honest with ourselves about the role we play in the bigger picture. Then together, I think we can find a solution that may be beneficial for everybody. Which leaves me with the question that I have for you. What do you think the solution to the Gen Z has no work ethic problem is? Whether you're an older generation or a younger one, comment below and let me know your thoughts. Maybe we can find some common ground, or maybe we'll just argue. I'm curious to see which one happens more. But those are just my thoughts. If you want to see more, check out this video right here. But other than that, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.